Nation, welcome into Sooner Spotlight, your all-access pass to all things Oklahoma Sooners athletics. I'm your host, Josh Mahler. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at RealJoshMahler. For all the updates on this show, right now we are a small production. Don't really feel like going through all the work and getting an entire new social media to try to manage. For those who don't know, I also have another podcast where we do national sports over. It's called Rising to the Occasion. You can search for us on YouTube, social media, all over the place, Rising to the Occasion. You can also go to rising2.com. But today, it's all about you, Sooner fans. I am a big Oklahoma fan. I have loved Oklahoma since I was very young. We are a new production, so please help us get started with a like and hit that subscribe button as well. Hit that notification bell if you want to be notified when we have new content released for you. Since we are a new production, we're looking to stand out from the rest. If there's something that you'd like to hear from a Sooner Sports show that isn't covered by your other favorite shows, make sure to drop it in the comments, DM me on X, or even email us at SoonerSpotlightPod@gmail.com. That's SoonerSpotlightPod@gmail.com. You can always reach out to me, reach out to the production team here, and we will try to do everything we can to answer each and every one of you. Right now, I'm sure there won't be a whole lot, so it'll be very easy. But what we wanted to get into today to really start this pod off right and get this thing going on the right track is start off by talking about Oklahoma football. Of course, Oklahoma football is going to be the biggest topic when it comes to Oklahoma sports in general. So we're going to dive into it. First, starting off by going through the schedule this year. This is our first year in the SEC. Congratulations, Oklahoma Sooner fans, Sooner Nation. We are finally into the SEC. It feels like it's been a long time coming. It's extremely exciting, especially when you look forward into this schedule. Now, starting off with the schedule, we have Temple, Houston, Tulane to start the season. I'm not going to get into these too much. These first three games should be expected to be wins by double digits. If not, then we may have to worry about the team going forward into SEC play. That's something that I would very much be worried about if we don't win, and hopefully by double digits in each one of those, whether it's by 10 points or by 40 points. I will take a win in all three of those, and like I said, hopefully a very significant margin as well. Houston and Tulane are the types of smaller teams that will give you fits and maybe test you a little bit in the areas that you weren't really ready for, maybe that you weren't expecting them to test you. But for the Sooners, they should be able to handle them without any issues. For example, looking at that first game, Oklahoma's currently a 42-point favorite over Temple right now. So I think that tells you a little bit, at least what Vegas is feeling about the Oklahoma Sooners going against Temple right now. So shouldn't have any worries. We better start off this season 3-0 going into SEC play. And mentioning SEC play, we start off Tennessee, the first SEC game, and the return of Josh Heupel, the last quarterback to win a national championship for the Oklahoma Sooners. It's going to be a huge talking point for the entire game, the entire lead up to this game. It's going to be really amazing looking at this. I know I heard Bob Stoops kind of advocating for maybe some sort of return appreciation kind of night for Josh Heupel, whatever that means. I'm sure they'll show some sort of highlights from that 2001 national championship game. It's going to be an electric atmosphere, to say the least. First SEC game, and being surrounded by all of the hype with Josh Heupel coming back. This is a very pivotal game for the Sooners, and of course, the Volunteers want to win this game as well. So looking at this game, for the Sooners' sake anyways, the first ever SEC game as an SEC opponent. So you're going into your first conference game as an SEC team now. This is the first real test of the season, too. Like I said, you might have a little bit of fits with Houston and Tulane. You should be able to beat Temple just fine. You may have a little bit of question marks as of why you didn't perform as well against those teams. But overall, this is your first real test. I think we can all agree on that. I think we can all understand that. And Tennessee is going to be a very good team. How far has this defense really come? I think that's what we're going to see, because we know Josh Heupel is an offensive guy. He loves to lean on the run, and he loves to open up the pass game with that run game. So this is going to be very interesting. You're going to see both sides of the defense on this and how well they have really formed. I think when you look to last season and you see the strides that this defense made, I think we can be very confident that we have a chance to stand up even against a tough offense like Tennessee and everything that they bring. Things to watch out for Tennessee, I think starting off, again, talking about Heupel, he is an offensive genius and utilizing that run game, opening up the passing game. So that's something that I'm worried about, and of course, interested to see how the defense responds. But Nico Iamaleava, I don't even know how to say his name properly. I knew I was going to butcher it. But Nico, that's what we're going to call him for probably the rest of the season and probably for the rest of his career as well. He is a legitimate Heisman contender in many experts' eyes. I don't know. We only saw a small portion of him in the bowl game. I'm very excited to see him play. I think he's a very good contender. I don't know. He's very unproven. We don't have a whole lot of tape on him. That's kind of what I'm saying here. But I do believe that the run defense has shown strides, especially in the second level at the linebackers. But there's yet to be a breakout in the secondary. Of course, we've got Billy Bowman. We've got the return of Woody Washington. And there's some other guys back there that, of course, I think they're standouts. But there hasn't been that huge standout as a secondary as a whole. So that's definitely something that I'm a little bit worried about. Maybe not worried. I'm not worried that our secondary is going to come together, but I'm concerned. I'm wondering how well that's going to shape when we go into this season, especially with a team like Tennessee, who's going to use that run game to open up for Nico to really try to slash the defense with the passing game. So, I love the linebacker crew, Danny Stutzman and all those guys coming back. I think this is going to be a really big year. But what will that secondary do? Are we able to slow them down, both running the ball and passing the ball? This defensive line, this is another thing to look out for. This Tennessee defensive line, they were number 2 in the SEC last year with 41 sacks. You have to keep your young QB poised and clean in the pocket if you want to beat this Tennessee team. So I think this is going to be a very pivotal game for Oklahoma, and the reason why I say that is because it is your first SEC test, and it's at home. So that makes it a little bit easier on you. My hopes is that we hype up Josh Heupel so much and get him so flustered in his first game as a head coach in Norman that he doesn't know what to do with himself. I don't think that's the case. I think he's extremely poised. We knew that as Oklahoma fans back in 2001 when we saw everything that he was able to do. So going into this game, we're going to have to keep Jackson Arnold poised. We're going to have to keep him comfortable. I think those first 3 games gives us a lot of room to really work on a game plan, figure out what's working, figure out what's not, and work on that. I think we have a chance against Tennessee, a very good chance. And I've even heard some Tennessee guys speaking out saying that they're worried about going into Norman, which is a really good thing to hear. But going on to our next SEC game, we have Auburn, the first SEC road test in Jordan-Hare. I will be at least tailgating here at this game, if not going to the game, and trying to get down there and see what I can feel and what I can experience there in Jordan-Hare. But don't let this 6-win season last year fool you, because Hugh Freeze has this program feeling very good about themselves and where they're at on the national stage, or at least where they're going. Maybe not necessarily about where they were or where they currently are, but where they are heading to. They're very confident in that. I believe Hugh Freeze's Auburn Tigers were only a year behind Oklahoma, and they're revamping with a new head coach. But coming into this year, now that Freeze has had a season to get his feet wet, he's ready to jump all in. And I also think that even though they were only just a year behind, because they had a 6-win season, exactly like Oklahoma takes a little bit of a step back going into the SEC. Now, I think we're going to be completely competitive going into the SEC, but there is a little bit of a readjustment going into the SEC, where Auburn just had a 6-win season in the SEC, ready to jump up to that 8 to 10 win season. And I think that's extremely capable. They are extremely capable of doing that, of jumping up to 8, maybe even 9, a really good season. They're looking at 10 wins. And with 10 wins in the SEC with no divisions, you have a very good chance of making it to the SEC championship game. If not that, with 10 wins in the SEC, I believe you're a playoff team. Not to get the Auburn Tiger fans all hyped up just yet, but I do think this is a really good team that is looking for 8 wins for sure. And I think Auburn fans would be very ecstatic over 8 wins after what they had to experience last year with that rebuild. So looking forward to Auburn and this first SEC road test. One thing to look out for is it is in Jordan-Hare. There has been a lot of talk, even guys talking to, I believe it was Carson Beck that was talking to Jackson Arnold, explaining to him about how that place is cursed. We are going to have a lot of prayers going into this game. We are going to have a lot of preparation going into this game. Jordan-Hare is one of those very underrated, nationally, I think very underrated atmospheres. People in the SEC, fans in the SEC, players in the SEC, they understand, but people outside of the SEC, we still have that kind of Big 12 mindset when we go to away games. We're Oklahoma. We can still win this game, but understand that this is one of those very tough atmospheres that is going to be deafening and extremely difficult. Right now, Oklahoma's a 2.5-point favorite. I don't know whether that's going to go up or down. Right now, I feel confident about that 2.5. I think that's a perfect line because I think it's going to be a very close game. I think Oklahoma can come out of this with a win. But another thing to look out for specifically with the team is that Auburn has a very good running attack, just like I talked about with Tennessee. Very good running attack, and they open up for the run. But when you look at that running attack with Auburn, they lean on it very heavily, and they might even open up the field, try to go to the pass game to lean on their run game. Last year, they kept a game very close with Georgia, who was the number 1 team at the time, if memory serves me correctly. And Auburn ran for 219 rushing yards on a Georgia defense. This is a Kirby Smart Georgia defense, and that's what Auburn was able to do in the run game against Georgia last year. They also had a close game with Bama with 244 rushing yards. So even better against a Nick Saban-led Alabama. I think this is a rushing attack that we are going to have to focus on. We are going to have to be strong in the trenches, and I think Oklahoma is going to be strong in the trenches. We have some transfer portal additions. Of course, like I said, our second level there in the linebackers with Danny Stutzman at the helm. I feel very confident with these guys, but pay attention because they averaged 189 yards per game on the ground last year, and I don't think that's going to change too much going into this season. I think Hugh Freeze is an offensive mastermind. He is a genius when it comes to the offense. I guess I really said that about Josh Heupel as well, but Hugh Freeze is one of those guys that will throw things at you that you were not expecting. So that's something that I think we have to pay attention to going into this Auburn game. Where Oklahoma can capitalize, though, is Peyton Thorne. Truly, I believe Peyton Thorne is a mediocre, maybe just above mediocre. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. He proved to have a very good season with Michigan State when he was there. But since transferring over, he really didn't have very good numbers. And, not even Auburn fans have a whole lot of faith in Peyton Thorne at quarterback. He does have some better wide receivers to pass to, Cam Coleman being the star that everyone's talking about, a freshman that is going to be a standout, and I think that's a guy that we have to lock up. So we have to pay attention to Cam Coleman, a freshman who's 6'3", 197 pounds. So he has speed, he has agility, sticky hands, and the ability to high point a football in a way that our secondary is going to have to step up against. I think we'll be battle-tested from Tennessee, and we'll have a better understanding of where that secondary is at and running defense, how well we are going to stop the run against Tennessee. So that's something that I think, at least I'm happy that we have Tennessee first to really know how we feel going into this game. If we can keep up the pressure on Thorne, though, who I don't think has the mobility to really attack Oklahoma, and focus on Coleman, make sure that he doesn't get the ball, but focus on that run game mainly. That run game is the one that will kill us if we allow them to just eat clock, run it down our throats. So focus on that run game and get pressure to Peyton Thorne. I think that is the best way to beat Auburn, and I do think that we have a very good shot of pulling off our first SEC road victory in a very hostile environment. This win also, I think this is one of those very pivotal. If we win Tennessee at home, that's big going into SEC play. But if we can win our first SEC road game in Jordan-Hare, this could be a huge momentum / confidence boost for the Sooners going forward, knowing that they can do whatever it takes to be able to win a game in the SEC. Now, going to the next game, you go down to Dallas to face the Longhorns in the Red River rivalry. I think that the Longhorns, I don't think they're really going to miss a beat coming from last year into this year. They definitely lost several players who graduated and several more in the transfer portal, some off to the draft, but they filled their needs very well, and they attacked the portal, and their recruiting has been phenomenal. So looking at this, I know they lost Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell at wide receivers and Sanders at tight end, but they add a wide receiver Isaiah Bond and tight end Amari Niblack from Alabama. So, I mean, if you're going to go out anywhere and get some great talent, it'll be from Nick Saban's Alabama team. And so looking at that, I think that they filled their positions very well. But how do the Sooners win this game again? Is it going to be another thriller? I believe so. I think it's going to be a very similar game to last year where you just felt that energy from Oklahoma, and I think we could win this game. But how do we win this game? You just have to be more physical. It's easier said than done, I know, but that is how this team won the Golden Hat last year, and you have to go out and do it again. I think that's the only way. You saw how Oklahoma was more physical in the trenches, up front, stopping the run. They had that huge goal line stand, which I think was a momentum boost for the rest of that game, and even for the season. So looking at that, you have to be more physical. I think that's the only way you truly come away with a victory. Getting closer to time, especially for each and every one of these games, but specifically for this game, I'm going to have a much more detailed breakdown for how we win the game, maybe give some key factors to win the game. But starting off for now, it's preseason. We have no idea who's going to be on the field, what they're going to look like. So I'm being very vague, but being more physical, I think that's how we win against Texas. And of course, that's very true for every team, but Texas specifically, because I think we can match up everywhere else very well the way that we did last year. Going on to South Carolina, they come to Norman, another former Sooner, Shane Beamer. He was a coach for Oklahoma a little ways back. He comes into the Palace on the Prairie. They lost Spencer Rattler, which would have been really fun to have him come back to the Palace just to see. Maybe that wouldn't have been fun because maybe he would have wanted a little bit of revenge. I think some of us as Sooner fans didn't treat him well. Maybe I shouldn't say us because I totally defended the guy. I loved him. I thought he did well. Anyways, they lost Spencer Rattler and Xavier Legette. They were their entire offense last year. So their O-line was atrocious last season also. But I really don't see anything that stands out to me thinking that OU shouldn't be able to win this game against the Gamecocks. As it stands right now, I feel like Oklahoma wins this game, and honestly, I think maybe they win this game pretty comfortably. So going into this one, I don't really have anything specific. I think this is a win for Oklahoma. You get them coming into your territory, so you have a home field advantage. I think they pull out with the win there. Oklahoma now goes to Ole Miss, another road game. There's a lot of talk about how Ole Miss has focused on being more physical up front on defense. I have to see it to believe it. I'm really not sure. I believe that Lane Kiffin has what it takes to be that good coach and change this team in the ways that they need to be changed. But I just have to see it. And we have enough time throughout the season to prepare for this game and to understand where our weaknesses and strengths are going into this game. So looking at Ole Miss right now, they're projected to be an extremely good team, and I'll go more into this at another time about Ole Miss. They're one of those confusing teams to me, confusing from the sense that I don't really understand why everyone is so high on them, but the more I look into them, the more I understand. But they do run an offense that is very well oiled, but it doesn't complement its defense very well, like you might see with maybe a Josh Heupel offense. The way that he runs his offense is meant to try to help his defense as much as possible. I do think that Ole Miss is probably top 4 in the SEC this year, maybe even top 3, and they also are a college football playoff contender this year. But I see a way that Oklahoma could come away with a win right now, a very tough-fought win, being they're at Ole Miss. Going to Ole Miss, it's going to be very difficult. So going to Oxford is going to be another very challenging one. I don't think it's going to be as challenging as Auburn. I would say that Auburn probably has the tougher atmosphere overall. But again, I see a way that Oklahoma can come out of this. If we were able to be undefeated going into this game with 4 SEC schools under our belt, even with one loss, this game seems much more feasible, and the morale has to be high going into this game. And who knows? Freaky things happen where Oklahoma might be the underdog, but it's this late in the season. Maybe Ole Miss is also undefeated going into this game. But I believe that Oklahoma has a chance to find a way. Again, this is preseason talk. This is pre-August talk. So we'll have to see closer to time. But right now, as it stands, and looking at the rosters, and I'll do more of a roster breakdown specifically for Oklahoma, but I really feel very confident in this team this year going forward into this SEC season. What to watch for Ole Miss? I'm very curious to see where their run game stands. Do they have a running back who's able to fill the shoes of an all-SEC running back, Quinshon Judkins? I don't believe so. He is a phenomenal running back. I'm really glad that he's not on their team this year, specifically for this game when Oklahoma goes in there. So do they have somebody that's going to be able to fill in the shoes, or at least kind of lean that way and grow and build as a running back? I am curious to see who they have at running back. I really don't know much about their running back room. So I'm curious to see that closer to the season and even more into the season whenever the season starts. Another one is Jackson Dart and company. Can they rack up yards that they did last year? I have full faith that Jackson Dart is probably going to have a better season this year than he has in the past seasons. But if this Oklahoma secondary shows the improvement that we're hoping for, then keep your eyes on Dart throwing some ill-advised passes that could help the Sooners in very key moments. We've seen this in the past from him. Not to dwell on the past, because he may be a totally different quarterback this year. He may have worked on his decision-making, trying to really go through drills to help himself out to be a better quarterback and making those better decisions. But that's been something in the past. So if we can get a couple of turnovers, maybe even just one interception, and have a couple of big stands, I think Oklahoma can come away with a win here. I really do. And this is one of those very tough ones to call. And I'm not going to call it a win. It's just this is pre-August talk right now. So a little bit of getting hyped for the season. Very excited. Going on after Ole Miss, we have Maine. This is how you know we're finally in the SEC, because here we are this late in the season, and we schedule Maine, of all teams. We have, to my knowledge, we've never played Maine. That's because we haven't been in the SEC. But what am I supposed to say? If we don't beat Maine, well, then the rest of these games probably didn't go our way either. Going on, though, OU goes up to Columbia, Missouri to face the Missouri Tigers, who were once in the Big 12 as well. But this is not the same team that we saw in the Big 12. That's something that I think some Oklahoma fans have misconstrued, maybe don't understand who this Missouri team really is. They do still have Brady Cook and Luther Burden, to my knowledge, so we definitely have to game plan for them. They did lose their star running back Cody Schrader, if memory serves me correctly, who had over 1,600 yards last season, a phenomenal running back for the Tigers. So that's another thing. This is an offense that scored 32.5 points per game a season ago. I do think that Mizzou will be a tough team, but it's also a team that I have full confidence in the Sooners being able to beat, as long as they handle business the way that they should. Don't get your head too high if you're rolling this far into the season with 1 or maybe even 0 losses, if we're dreaming. Don't get your head high. Walk into Columbia understanding that this is a much different team, much different atmosphere than what we knew in the past. And of course, this team, this upcoming team, doesn't know the Missouri Tigers the way that us as fans would. So go into this game, understand who this is, and understand that this is a very tough team now, and one of those teams that's expected to do a lot of good things. There's a lot of high expectations for Mizzou going into this season. Understand that Drinkwitz has this program feeling like they should have high expectations for themselves. This team under Drinkowitz has gone toe-to-toe with Georgia. But as long as you stand on business, this is a team that you should be able to beat as the Oklahoma Sooners. Oklahoma has more talent, better resources, better overall coaching staff. There's no reason why we shouldn't expect to beat Missouri. Not to say that we won't lose to them, but we should be able to beat them. We should. I think that Oklahoma overall has the better team than Missouri. Going on after that, this is where it kind of gets a little tricky coming into these last couple of games. Alabama comes into Norman with Kalen DeBoer at the helm. The first time that Oklahoma sees an Alabama team that wasn't led by Nick Saban in the last couple of meetings. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't know what to expect from Alabama this season. Maybe I'll have a better feeling about what their identity is going to be after the Wisconsin game in Madison early in the season. I think that's where we're going to see Alabama truly tested for the first time under Kalen DeBoer. I think that's going to be a very interesting game to watch. But even though Nick Saban is no longer there and controlling this team, I expect that Bama will still get 10 wins under DeBoer somehow. I think they're going to be that 10 to 11 win team again. And looking at DeBoer, the reason why I say this is that he has a proven track record as a head coach. As a head coach, he has an overall record of 104-12. That's 104 wins and only 12 losses, with a bowl record of 3-1, with one loss being to Michigan in the national championship game. This is a head coach that is coming in, and I think a lot of people, including myself, first said, man, Kalen DeBoer, this is where your career goes to die. You come into Tuscaloosa taking over for the GOAT, Nick Saban himself, and we expected him to come in here and lose because you don't want to be the guy taking over for Nick Saban. But since then, and looking into it this offseason, I almost wonder if you do want to be the guy taking over for Nick Saban. Because if you're the guy taking over for Nick Saban, who left this program in a very good spot with all of the resources still intact, you still have access to go and talk to Nick Saban himself. So when I'm thinking about this, Kalen DeBoer just took over a very good program as a very good head coach. So, he was left with a top-tier program in tip-top shape when it was handed to him. So I really think that Alabama's not going to skip too much of a beat. Now, I might be wrong. Maybe they come in and they only win 7 games this year. I don't know. And that's kind of where I stand with Alabama. I do think we can beat Alabama. That's another team that they feel beatable right now because we haven't seen them. We don't know what their identity is going to be under this new regime. So I'm excited to see what the future holds. But right now, I'm just going to have to leave it at that. Now, for the final game, this is where it gets very tricky. Oklahoma goes into Death Valley to take on the third Tigers team of the season. We faced Auburn. We faced Mizzou. Now we face LSU in Baton Rouge. This is going to be a very difficult game. I have no doubts about that. It's in Baton Rouge, Death Valley, the real Death Valley, if we're going to take a little bit of a jab, even though Brent Venables may not agree with that. But to take a little jab at Clemson, the real Death Valley here. But we have no reason to believe that Brian Kelly's team will be, that they won't be a top tier team, is what I should say. So we have no reason to believe that they won't be a great team. They still have a great offense, even though they will be without their Heisman QB, Jaden Daniels from last year. I think Garrett Nussmeier will be a fine quarterback, but obviously he won't be putting up the video game stats that we saw a year ago from Daniels. But could OU win in Death Valley? My answer is yes. And of course, I know I'm painting this out. I don't think we're going to go undefeated. I don't even know if we're going to reach 10 wins this year. This is a very difficult schedule. But I think all of these games individually, at this point in the season, where we're not even to the season yet, I think every game is winnable because I know what this Oklahoma team is truly capable of. Brian Kelly is certain that his defense is going to be better this year. After winning 10 games just a season ago, Brian Kelly had to completely revamp his defense with a new defensive coordinator and a defensive coaching staff altogether. It's going to be a new coaching staff, new defensive coaching staff with new schemes. So, looking at that, I think this is interesting. I don't know what to expect from their defense, but I do expect their offense to still be a high-rolling offense. LSU is known for having good wide receivers come in. And like I said, I think Nussmeier is going to be just fine at quarterback, especially for the last game of the season. And this is in Death Valley. There could be a lot riding on this game for either team. Either team could have the maybe even SEC aspirations. Either team could have college football playoff aspirations and hopes to make it to the college football playoff. Maybe even hoping for a spot to get the first round bye. Who knows? I think there could be a lot riding on this game. So it's going to be a very difficult game. If you're an Oklahoma fan excited for the SEC because of the atmospheres that you get to experience this year, I think Jordan Hare and Oxford would definitely be one to go to. But for my top two picks, Jordan Hare or Baton Rouge to go to Death Valley. I think those are the two games to go check out. Looking through the schedule, do I think we are going to go undefeated? I just now said this. No, I don't think we are going to go undefeated. I think that is an extremely unlikable, an extremely unlikely task for this Oklahoma Sooners team. But I do know that what we are capable of. I do know what I saw last year, and I do think that Oklahoma has a chance to win any one of these games on the schedule. There's some tough ones in there. I think Texas. I think Ole Miss. I think even Mizzou. Tennessee, Auburn, Alabama, LSU. This is a stacked roster. A stacked schedule. It is very unlikely for us to go in and be undefeated. But for my high end, I think 10 wins would be. You have to be extremely happy with 10 wins. That's kind of what my hopes are, is for 10 wins. Of course, I hope that we can go undefeated. I hope that we can win the SEC, go to the college football playoff, play for a national championship. But to be realistic, I would be totally happy with 10 wins. I think a 10-win Oklahoma team this year in the SEC goes to the college football playoffs, possibly even playing for the SEC championship game. But to keep that out of it, 10 wins would be great. 9 wins is kind of what I expect from Oklahoma. When I look at this schedule, I expect them to win 9 games. As an Oklahoma fan base, we do not expect, we expect nothing less than that 10-win mark most of the time. We expect nothing less than greatness. So 9 wins, I think we have to be happy with 9 wins. 8 wins feels like a letdown, even though that is my low end. I think that's probably something that we have to look forward to and be reasonable with ourselves and realistic, understanding that we might only win 8 games this year. But 8 games, I feel like you have to just take that and move on. This is the first season in the SEC. It's very interesting to go forward, but I have a lot of high hopes for this team. So looking at this upcoming season, I'm hoping for 10. I would settle for 9. My low end, where I would feel a little disappointed, is 8 wins. But that's pretty much all I got for you. Breaking down the schedule, I do think each one of these games individually is very much, we're very capable of winning any one of these games. So looking at it, I think this is a very exciting year. Sooner Nation, I am extremely happy to have started this podcast. The production team here, we are going to work as hard as we can to get you guys the best content. So again, please reach out to me. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at @RealJoshMahler. That's at RealJosh, Mahler. So go check me out. You can follow me. Shoot me a DM of what you would like to see on this new Sooner Sports podcast. Like I said, we are going to be covering all Sooner sports, but of course, as Sooner Nation understands, Oklahoma football takes precedent, and especially with it being this close to season, we've got to get into college football. So we're going to talk all things Oklahoma sports. Very excited to get into this. I thank you all so much for those of you who did tune in, and looking forward to it. Looking forward to the first season in the SEC. But Sooner Nation, that's all I got for you today. So have a good one.